That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Yeah. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
What is going on? Did you put let's go too? Oh, I just put let's go, so it sent it across
Yeah, it
all
sends it to
the
everybody.
platforms. Welcome back to Fishing Friday Live, everyone. We appreciate you guys joining us. I know we'll get more people tuning in as the seconds roll by. As you can see, it's just me by my lonesome here in the studio. Ben's out. He's a little under the weather. And Pete is enjoying himself down in sunny Tampa, Florida. Are you in Tampa, Pete?
Yeah,
Oh.
Brandon, so just outside Tampa.
Okay, right on.
Maybe.
Well, hey guys, before we jump into this, let's do our obligatory sponsor thank yous. First of all, thank you to One Cast Fishing for supporting the show. If you guys want to get your hands on those snagless jigs, weedless neds, soft plastics apparel, and all that good stuff, getting ready for this pre-spawn bite, head on over to onecastfishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast, save a little bit of money. We all know that everything's expensive, so anything that we can do to save you all some money, we want to do that. So use the code TheOneCast at onecastfishing.com. Save some money. Also, I'm rocking one of their hats right now. I know Pete's rocking some of their apparel. I think Pete's got one of the shirts on, if I'm not mistaken. CarolinaWatersNC.com. CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code TheOneCast and save some money at checkout. They got all lines of apparel from hats, UPF shirts, different things like that, not only to protect you from the UV rays, but there's a lot of stylish apparel that they have as well. They got hats that are specifically designed for people with long hair, such as females or dudes that are rocking man buns. So those are pretty cool. Those are a hot take at the Raleigh Fishing Show. So head on over to CarolinaWatersNC.com, get your hands on some of that apparel. Use the code TheOneCast. And then finally, if you guys are in the market, you're looking for a piece of property or a home or whatever the case may be, hit our buddy up, Eric Schwind at Mossy Oak Properties. He's got a ton of different varieties of rolling landscape, natural hills, wildlife, waterways, all that good stuff. If you guys are avid outdoorsmen or you just want to escape that concrete jungle and find a little peace, he'll help you out. So don't miss out on your opportunity to own your piece of paradise. Hit our buddy up, Eric Schwind, at 936-494-9686. Or you can email him at eschwind@mossyoakproperties.com. That's ESCHWIND at mossyoakproperties.com, and let him know that we sent you guys. We are in it. What's up, Pete?
What's up, man? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you good. Video's good on this side. Audio's good as well. So what do you got?
It's
Spotty,
really weird because I don't know. It's just weird because when we were warming up, I could hear myself like we do in the studio with a headset. But now that we're live, I can't hear myself, and so I don't know if I'm coming through or not. So as much as I hated to listen to myself in the beginning and hear your own voice, now like I'm used to that. So as we're sitting here, doing this, and I don't hear it. It's kind of odd, but yeah, man, just chilling down here in Brandon, Florida, which is pretty much Tampa. Came down for some work for. Supposed to be for a few days, but staying for a few extras. So yeah, man, just probably gonna go try to find some ponds to beat around on tomorrow. And there's a big cold front coming, so Florida bass pretty much completely quit eating. When those cold fronts hit, but still gonna see if we can go find one or two to lean on.
Before you started doing, because I want you to tell everybody about that and just a quick synopsis of what you're doing down there, because I think it's pretty cool. But you had the opportunity to go down there a couple days early and fish with our good buddy from FX3, Michael Johns, right?
Yeah, so I came down a few days early and spent a couple days with Mike John with FX3. It was actually an FX3 trip with Mike, and we fished the Kissimmee chain. And he was getting ready for the BFL down here. So spent some time on the water with him talking about FX3 and everything they've got going on, and then chasing a few fish. We caught a few. I lost one big one punching, which if you've never punched, that was my first time. And I can tell you it's like learning how to fish all over again. Completely different from anything that I'm used to doing. So
Yeah, full disclosure, I've never caught a punching fish. I mean, like, I don't consider throwing like a half-ounce weight through like some thick grass punching. Pete's talking about like straight punching mats with big 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce weights with a big flipping hook and a bug or a worm or whatever, and waiting for that bite to feel like it's spongy, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it just depends. Sometimes it's a sponge. Sometimes they thump it as it falls down through that mat. So
We're
it
talking
was
like
kind of like
55, 65 pound braid, right?
I was punching with 65-pound braid. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I've never caught a fish doing that. I went down there last year, as you guys know, and did a little fishing with Mike Johns on Kissimmee as well. But that wasn't the deal that we practiced. We didn't do any punching. I punched a couple times just to do it. I got that new cash and punch rod, which I love that thing. But I never caught a fish doing it. So that's on my bucket list for sure. So if you guys are in the comments and you've caught some punching fish, let us know how you do it, what you use, what your favorite bait is, and all that good stuff. Because Pete and I were both novice at it. We know Mike Johns is probably on right now. He catches them all the time doing that. But tough tournament. Actually, let's rewind real quick. So you're down there. What are you doing?
Yeah. So my company does a bunch of stuff, and we do a bunch of ecological work, conservation work in Florida. And so they needed some help surveying gopher tortoise burrows this week. So that's what I've been down here doing. You
That's
just kind of
awesome,
go out
dude.
and walk through the middle of nowhere and look for their burrows and then document them.
Before you went down there, I thought you were going to go down there and like check on sea turtles and count sea turtles, which sounded way more cooler than what you're doing. But still, that's a pretty cool deal to go down and enjoy yourself in Florida. I know you're ready to be back up here in North Carolina, as I'm ready for you to get back up here as well, because we know that the bite should be getting better here real soon. Who said that, Pete? Did you get a chance to boat flip a 3-foot alligator?
Oh, I bet that was Dave. No, I didn't, Dave. All the ones that we saw were much bigger than 3 foot. So I flipped. When we were punching, we were just going down. You're just going down the grass line, and you're punching a few spots, and you move a little bit. And Mike was in the front of the boat, obviously, and he punched, and then we slid down a little bit, and I'm punching, and I flipped that punch rig up in there, and it comes down, and it landed right in about a 6-footer's mouth that neither one of us had seen. He had to punch right beside it, and it was just laying there on the ground. And I'm like, how do you not see a 6-foot alligator just that's just laying there in the grass like 6 feet away from you? But pretty incredible how camouflaged they were.
Yeah.
So it landed in his mouth, and I panicked and didn't set the hook, and then it opened its mouth back up, and I was able to pull it out of there without hooking it, because I probably would have lost that battle, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know though, man. When they do that death roll, a lot of times we get that braid wrapped up in their face, and then the fight is on. And Zach Scott said, "Gator sounds delicious. Bring us some back." Zach, if you listen to the episode with Shaw Grigsby, he's the guy that we were going to go gator hunting with or catching with, if anybody, because he has a vast amount of knowledge doing it. He does it every single year, whether or not it's through drawing tags or working with FWC, Florida Wildlife Commission, or I think that's what it is. But I can tell you that I'm not going down there just to go gator hunting by myself. I ain't doing it. So
no,
but
I got a contact. I got a contact that I made today with FWC, so I'm going to try to see if we can get them on the show, just talk about the stuff they face down here, because they've got a whole laundry list of things that they face as far as conservation of our natural species. We worry about spotted bass, but some of the stuff that's running around in the waters down here are way worse than spots. So
yeah,
I did jack a tilapia off a bed. Funny story.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
I thought
you
I
sent
sent
a
you a
picture of it.
So there were a bunch of beds, and I had no idea what those fish were on them. And then once I got it, I knew it. I sent you pictures, so I didn't know, but as soon as I got it in, I figured out what it was.
Yeah.
But they don't really eat on a bed like most fish. Like you swim that, I caught it on a D-bomb, but I reeled it into the beds, and then they would swim off the bed. And then I noticed they would come back, and they would pick up any leaves or anything that were laying in the bottom of the bed. So I just rigged up a natural color D-bomb and flipped it into the bed and let it sit there. So when he came back and started picking up leaves, eventually he picked that D-bomb up, and I freaking smoked him in the face and crossed his eyes. He shot 3 foot out of the water.
I feel like between Pete and I, like Pete catches more multi-species than I do. Pete obviously caught a tilapia down in Florida. He catches freaking flounder out in the river. I've never caught one of those, like bass fishing. Like you just sooner or later, I've seen you catch turtles before. Like sooner or later, you're going to like snag a dead body or something off a bed. I hope you don't do that, but still, like it's only a matter of time. So, Daniel said, Daniel Hodges on. What's up, Daniel? He hooked a small alligator on a frog down in Okeechobee 2 years ago. Yeah, Daniel, I also caught a small, like 3-footer on a frog on the St. Johns River. And I did boat flip him in because I was destined to get my frog back. So thankfully he death rolled and it was able to like shut his mouth with my braid. That Cortland silent flip is what I use, 65 pound. And, yeah, my buddy was in the boat with me and he was like, are you going to boat flip that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like if it was 6 foot, absolutely not. Like you can keep it. But, so before we jump into we had a bunch of questions. We did a quick poll on our community page about what you guys wanted to talk about. I'm not going to go in depth about it. Pete and I, we usually don't go in depth on like MLF Toyota Series events. But I do have to note that somebody dropped to 70 pounds over 3 days on Gunnersville this weekend. And if any of you guys were fishing Gunnersville, like you either got them or you didn't get them. Mike was down there. He had a real tough tournament. A couple other guys I know had tough tournaments. There was 261 boats in that tournament, but whoever got them, they really got them. I know G-Man finished, I think, 104th. So it was tough on a lot of the veterans and stuff like that. And then Ouachita ends tomorrow, right, Pete, for the Bassmaster EQs?
Yeah, I was just pulling it up because I even looked at the leaderboard today.
Yeah, Ouachita is being really, really stingy too. I think if you're in that 10-pound range.
35 pounds is leading. It took 31 to make the cut.
Okay, yeah. So
it's not too bad.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about Ouachita. I just know that some of our friends are up there, and it's been a tough deal. So, but you guys, obviously, tournaments are flaring up. We're getting ready. The Cat here in North Carolina is getting ready to kick off on Bugs Island. The Piedmont Bass Classic is getting ready to kick off on Jordan Lake on the 3rd of February, next Saturday. I think that's the 23rd. I can't remember. So tournaments are starting to heat up. Water temperatures right now on most of our lakes are between that 49 and 52 degree range, depending on where you're at in the lake. So like I said, man, get your hands on them jigs, get yourself some square bills, get yourself ready for that pre-spawn action, because you're about to catch some big ones. So, all right, before Pete, you got anything before we move into the questions?
No, I was just gonna say I don't know what the weather is about to do, but if we're getting that cold front, then that'll probably drop those temps again and push us back even more.
Yeah, so it's supposed to drop down, high of 51 tomorrow. I think another high of 50 on Sunday, and then it's supposed to warm back up Monday. But I went out today. I won't say the lake I went on, but I sucked. I caught 2 fish all day long, and I turned the forward facing sonar off. I literally dropped the trolling motor as soon as I put the boat in the water and started fishing, and I caught one on my 4th cast, shallow cranking. And then I played around with that all day and didn't really. I caught one more little fish, and then I had to go deep. But you could tell, and we'll get into this with the comments, because we're going to talk about electronics a little bit. You could see the fish behavior was not. They weren't moving around a lot. The bass weren't moving. The bait fish weren't moving. Like it was just a different. You can just tell that the bite was slow. At least for me, it was slow. I'm sure other people caught him. I know Charles went up to Bugs Island today. He said he struggled. I think he caught 4 fish, but again, you can hit a little stretch of them and catch a limit. But if you don't hit that right stretch, sometimes it's tough. So,
yeah.
All right. So let's jump into this first comment here. Pete, I'm in the private chat.
Yeah, you're good.
So since So the first comment is, or the
Just
first
real
question
quick,
is,
he said who grabbed 70 pounds. It was Hayden Marbett was his name. He's for angler out of Alabama.
yeah, he smoked him. All right. What's the, I don't know who sent this. Says, since I'm new to the use of electronics, I'd love to hear some tips how to interpret what I'm seeing, how to use side scan imaging and down imaging to its fullest when I'm trolling, spot fishing, or scouting areas. How do you guys incorporate the use of imaging in your time on the water? Oh, that was Zach. Pete, do you want to start off with that one?
Yeah, so I'm using my side imaging first and foremost for anything that I'm going to fish offshore. Early spring, if I know the fish are shallow, then I don't really use my electronics at all, other than to use the map to identify those areas that I want to be in. But once they start to move out, then I'm using that to look for structure, or if I key in on if they're on rock, then I'm looking for rock piles. If they're on wood, I might look for offshore wood. A lot of people use side imaging to find fish. I don't really use it to find fish, but I'll use it to find structure. I'll see fish on there on occasion, but typically, if I can find that offshore structure where I know the fish are going to be, then I can use my 2D or down imaging to kind of dial in on that. So I'm gonna usually stay off of a point or something, 80, 100 feet, scan that with side imaging, see what's going on up there, see if there's any bait, see if there's any structure. And then depending on the lake, I might run over the top of it with 2D to see how the fish are set up. I know we do it a lot on one of our local lakes because they don't really seem to get too pushed off by you running over the top of them. So like we can run over the top and see if they're suspended or they're set up on the bottom, how they're kind of sitting there. And then that's how you know how to attack them from the beginning. And then like I said, with forward facing now, I'm side imaging, I'm finding structure offshore, and then I'm just going to drop the trolling motor and look at it with forward facing, and then I'll know if there's fish on it or not.
Yeah. I'll stay in the private chat, Pete, if you want to go to the group chat, make sure like I don't jump over everyone, but I'll jump in
Andrew?
here. So use of electronics, I'd like to hear some more tips from Zach. So the first thing that I want to talk about is map cards. A lot of time, I think, we hear a lot about forward facing sonar and technology, but map imaging is probably the most useful tool when it comes to your electronics. So depending on what you have, if you have Humminbird, Lowrance, Garmin, Ray Marine, I don't know what you're using, right? But for me, I use Lowrance, and I run the CMAP reveal card. I have two of them, and I also have a Navionics card, the platinum one. But mapping is the most important. If you can't do anything else, like just learn how to read your map. The basic mapping that comes with these graphs doesn't have the contour lines that really break down the lake to show you those steep walls, those flats, artificial reefs that they plant in the lake, fish markers, marker buoys, all that stuff, channels. So the first thing I would say, Zach, is get really familiar on how to use a map. That's going to help you depict where the fish are most likely going to be based on the time of the year they're going to be, right? So we're going into pre-spawn. So I'm going to be looking at those channel swings that butt up to primary and secondary points where those fish can stage at to move back into the spawning pockets to drop their eggs. In the summertime, just like the fish move in, they're going to move back out and stage on a lot of those same spots. But instead of going to vertical structure after they spawn, a lot of times they'll go to your summer flats and things like that, or your ledges, because they're tired and they're, all that stuff. So mapping is, in my opinion, number one deal. And then when it comes to down scan imaging, I actually don't use down scan imaging. I use a lot of 2D. And you asked about what you're looking at. You got to play with your contrast and your settings on your graph. But usually on 2D, the more yellow it is, the more dense it is. If it's really thin and red, it's either a small fish or a stick on the bottom or whatever. But usually the more dense it is, the more yellow it's going to be. So you can see on 2D sonar fish lined up on the bottom, and sometimes it'll be like stumps and stuff like that, but you can really depict bass that are spread out on the bottom. Bass don't stack on top of each other like this, right? That's usually crappie and white perch. Bass will offset if they're suspended, and then if they're on the bottom, they'll be usually in like lines and scattered out. So but that is literally just playing around with your electronics. And like Pete said, side scan's a great way to get away from going over the top of those fish. Again, you got to play with your color palettes. I like the orange color palette and the blue color palette. That's what my eyes do best with picking fish out. And then on your side scan imaging, once you really get dialed in, you'll see shadows. And if anything's creating a shadow, it's either a stump with a shadow or it's a fish with a shadow. You'll be able to pick out those things. So, or rocks and stuff. So I don't really know what else to say. Forward facing sonar is, man, that's just one of those things you just got to go out and play with. Best thing you can do is drop the trolling motor in there if you have forward facing sonar and like scan a bridge to look at what a bridge looks like, bridge pylons and docks and stuff like that. So
what's up, Mikey? Yeah. David Fuchs said, Pete, do you think using side scanner from a distance cuts down on the sonar that fish feel? I'm sure it does to some extent, but more for me, it's just about not going over the top of those fish, because a lot of times boats are running over the top of them, especially on lakes that they get a lot of pressure. When you run over the top of them, you'll push them to the bottom and shut down any bite you might have had. There are times where I'll intentionally run over the top of them, and then I'll juice my motor to stir shad up, because sometimes you can trigger them to feed doing that. But you really got to read kind of what's going on the water, how those fish are setting up, and that's really where forward facing has come to be a tool. I can sit back, I can watch how they're acting, if they're feeding or not, and then kind of figure out a game plan for their, like Trey said. And then 2D down imaging, I think that's a preference thing. Like, I know there's guys with down imaging that have it dialed in where they can tell fish from stumps and logs and all that stuff. I don't mess with it enough. I'm more comfortable with 2D like Trey is. So typically that's what I'll run. As a new forward-facing user, I found Perspective 360 mode is a bit more user-friendly if you're used to fishing shallow. Yeah, I could see that, Cody. I don't really ever use Perspective because I have Mega 360 on my boat along with my forward-facing, so I have that constant 360 side image available to me.
Yeah, perspective mode. That's something I'm going to play with this year in the spawn. I see a lot of anglers doing that. They're using perspective mode, on spawning flats and stuff like that. I know it works really well in Florida. We saw Scott Martin doing it on Okeechobee. And a lot of guys do it, like around big trees such as Santee Cooper and stuff. I don't know if they're necessarily using, I think they're using both forward facing and perspective mode, but if the fish are locked on beds, I don't think that sonar is going to kick them off the bed. But I will tell you that in my experience, offshore fishing, deep cranking, if you pull up on a school and you scan them with your forward facing sonar and you're not getting them to bite, like turn your forward facing sonar off for a minute and see if you can get them to bite. Like the amount of sonar that's going on the lakes now, I'm not sure if it's actually having a negative impact or if the fish are just going to start getting used to it like they're used to every other electronic. You know what I mean? So I think time will tell, but I definitely have noticed a difference with it right now, but maybe in the future it'll become the new normal for those fish. So I don't know.
What's up, Brad? No, I haven't used the Lowrance version because you have to have 4 transducers and 4 black boxes to do that. So.
Oh, for what?
For their 360 stitching that they came out with for their active target 2. You can do you might only need 2, but I still have to have 2 active target 2s to do it, so I haven't messed with it.
Hopefully that answered Paul Stevens' question. He also said, I'd like to talk about electronics, especially forward Mega Live imaging. Mega Live is the forward facing sonar for Humminbird, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean,
You got Mega
yeah,
Lives, Hummingbird, and then Live Scope or what's the other? Pan
Panoptics.
Optics for Garmin,
Go.
and then Active Target is Lowrance.
Yep. But they're all about the same. I mean, some people say, Garmin's the best. Some people say Active Target's the best. Whatever you're comfortable with. I still know guys with the original Pan Optics on their boats, and that's what they're used to. But yeah, I mean, forward facing sonar, whatever model you have, it like everybody says, it's not going away. You either going to adapt to it or you're not going to adapt to it. There are plenty of tournaments where you don't need it. There's plenty of times recreationally fishing where you don't need it. So, get it if you want it, and don't get it if you don't want it,
Yeah, just to put in perspective, like for the bank beaters or the folks that don't have it, don't want it, like those fish are going to push back to the banks. A lot of these fish that have been hiding out deep and have been getting hammered, haven't been getting hammered, are going to start moving. I don't care what anybody says. Eventually, this is going to have an effect on how fish set up and kind of where they're living. And take it for what it's worth, but Keith Carson had an absolutely terrible first event with the Bass Pro Tour, and he did not fish offshore forward facing like everybody else did. He went and fished a Toyota and used forward facing sonar and had a top 30 finish, and said he made a post on Facebook that said he doubts he'll make another cast at the bank this year. Now that he feels comfortable with forward facing sonar, he'll stay offshore doing that. So
Yeah.
it's pushing people that don't even like to fish offshore, because it's opening up our eyes to what's available out there. But in time, those fish are going to move, and there's always fish shallow. I mean, I fished Jordan and caught a lot of really big fish shallow before I knew anything about fishing offshore. When the water was 90 degrees, I was catching 5-pounders off laydowns in a foot of water. There's always going to be some fish shallow. So if you're a shallow guy and you want to do that, it's still available. You may not catch the numbers when you hear dudes come in and say they caught 60. You're probably not going to do that in the middle of the summer fishing shallow, but you're still going to go out there and catch some fish. So that's really what it's all about. There's a new live scope that goes really deep. Yeah, Tony, they released that at the same time as the LVS 34 or whatever the new one is, but it's finally starting to get more attention in the bass world. When it first came out, I said somebody will have this eventually. They designed it for offshore or for saltwater fishing in much deeper water. I think if you went and listened to our episode with from Angler's Choice, I think Corey Johnston had talked about putting one on his boat. I don't remember if he did in ours or another podcast, but the one thing I'll say with that, Tony, is if you haven't seen it, that transducer is gigantic. It's like almost triple the size of the normal live scope transducer. It's literally like that big in their
It's a
little
dinner
triangle
plate.
shape that they do. Yeah, it's freaking giant. But I think you
Yeah.
can see like 300 feet with it pretty clear. So
Hey, you know what though? Like there are plenty of times of the year where you don't like sometimes the biggest fish are on the bank when they're spawning, like so if you're just fun fishing, it doesn't matter. I think that's where everyone gets so wrapped up. If you're a tournament angler and you want to stay competitive, and you're on the kind of water that you need a forward facing sonar to stay competitive, then you might want to get it. There are some bodies of water where forward facing sonar may just not be for you. If you're fishing 2 feet deep all the time, maybe that's just not the deal, but I mean, the thing is guys are getting so good with it now. I mean, they're using it to bed fish. I almost thought like, okay, if you can see a fish on the bed with your forward facing sonar, doesn't mean they have to be hooked in the mouth. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, is that technically sight fishing now?
I think I believe they did right. I believe if you go and look at the rules, it actually says if you're fishing for bed fish, they have to be hooked in the mouth. So it covers
Yeah.
whether you're visually fishing them or you're casting to them, because I think that question came up during the MLF debacle when they had all the cheating stuff going with catching the same fish 9 times in a day. And
Yeah, that was on Cayuga.
yeah, there was like 6 guys accused of stuff, and I think that came into question, and that's when a bunch of people pulled the rules, and it said basically basically that if you're bed fishing for a fish that you know is on the bed, then you have to hook them in the mouth. We did have one more electronics question I want to go into real quick before we go into more rabbit holes and stuff. But Paul Stevens asked he wanted us to talk about or no, I'm sorry, Zach
Zach Gajewski.
Gajewski. I'm not sure how to say your last name, Zach. I'm sure I butchered it. I'm sorry.
Zach G.
He wanted us to talk about graphs, which we did, and how to get close to live scope without emptying all your pockets to get one. You're not going to get close to live scope without emptying your pockets to get a live scope. You can fish with 2D vertically and watch your bait drop on fish and see fish. There's delay in their reactions and all of that, but you can do that. We've been doing it for a long time up north, growing up there, drop shot and smallmouth and stuff vertically, where we can watch our baits fall down to them and then move and react to it. It's not instant feedback. It's not real time, but you can cheat the system with your 2D if you get it dialed in right. And you need something with like a chirp 2D. I'm going to use Hummingbird technology because that's what I'm familiar with, which is a much higher frequency and a higher ping rate. So it pings fast enough to where you can see those returns.
I agree with you on that, Pete. Like the way my forward facing sonar happened before I had forward facing sonar was using 2D on Lake Norman and fishing for spots. And Zach G, that's probably the best advice like I could give you if you want to fish with 2D. Either find a place that's full of smallmouth or find a place that's full of spots. I don't know if I could do that with a largemouth, just with the way that they set up and stuff. But again, if you get really good enough with your 2D that you know what the largemouth look like, then you can probably get away with it. But spotted bass and smallies, you can definitely do it with 2D sonar. But like Pete says, make sure you got the right rod and the right bait because you're going to get bit before you even think you get bit.
Yep. Andrew Pulliam Fishing said, whatever you have, don't forget time on the water. So the most important tool. A lot of pros have all the toys and still don't catch them. We focus on the top 10, but there's a bottom 10 too. Yep, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, more and more we're seeing that bottom 10 being the guys that don't want to use the forward-facing sonar
but you know what?
Offshore,
but if you guys caught the NPFL's first tournament of the year, which was on Logan Martin's, the only tournament they've had this year, it was won old school style by Will Harkins throwing a red crankbait around and beating the rocks and beating the dock pylons and stuff like that. So everyone else that was out there scoping, they caught him too, but the quality that Will Harkins was able to catch because of where he was at and how the fish were moved up, he did it old school. So
and that's the Andrew's point. Like you got to know where fish want to be and be around them. Just because you can see them doesn't mean they're the right fish.
Absolutely. Yep. Time on the water. Can't replace that, man. Can't replace it at all. All right. So we beat up electronics pretty hard. Hopefully we answered some of your guys' questions about electronics. Let's see.
What's going on, Patrick? Hope you're doing good.
All right,
looking forward to getting.
Did we lose Pete? Yeah. Oh, there he is. We can't hear you, Pete. All right. So we're going to move. No, we can't hear you. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Pete will jump in here when he gets on. Aaron Little asked about boats. So we talked about electronics, had a bunch of questions about those. Let's talk about boats. So boats, is it worth going to see Bradley Terry and buying a brand new boat, etc.? So to answer that question, that just completely depends on your individual financial situation. Everything is expensive, and that's everything from steak to boats to vehicles to homes. Interest rates are not great. So, I mean, if you're in a financial situation where it could put you in jeopardy, like I wouldn't go buy one. I'm still running a 2017 boat because it's paid off and it doesn't make sense for me to go buy a new one right now. But Bradley Terry, he's a good buddy of ours with Carolina Waters Apparel Company. He works at the Bass Pro Shops in Cary, North Carolina. And, they're all White River Marine products. So Ranger, Tracker, Nitro, Triton, all that stuff that's up there. If you're looking to buy a brand new boat, it's pretty hard to beat Nitro and Tracker's prices. They've pretty much dominated the industry. The number one selling bass boat in the continental United States is a Tracker 175, just because of the price point on it. It's not a tournament rigged boat, but you could fish a tournament out of it. But that question really is, if you want a brand new boat and you can financially afford it, then sure. But you guys can also, if you look on the internet, if you look at bassboatsforsale.com or you look on Facebook Marketplace or you look anywhere else, they're having a hard time moving boats right now. And that's because the interest rates are so high. So if you don't want to pay, let's say 8.9% or higher on a boat, then don't go buy one. That would be my recommendation on that. We've been to a couple different marine dealers and their inventories are extremely full. There was an instance of a guy with an 835 credit score or something of that nature, and he couldn't get below an 8.9 interest rate. So that just goes to show you right now what the market is like for new boats. So Aaron, Yep, we got you now, Pete.
My wife tried to FaceTime me and it threw everything off. Sorry about that.
Dadgummit, Chelsea. But yeah, I mean, that's, if you can afford it and it doesn't put yourself or your family in jeopardy, sure, go buy one. But if not, hold what you got. I don't know, Pete, you got anything on buying a new boat?
Brad, I absolutely love you. All of our friends that sell boats, I absolutely love you. But unless you can pay cash for a new boat right now, don't buy one. Interest rates are still crazy. 7% on a boat is nuts when you're dropping $100,000 or even $60,000. So if you can hold off for a little bit, I think those are going to come down here pretty quick. And like I said, Brad, I love you, but I personally would not buy a boat right now just because of the interest rates and the need to finance.
Yeah.
Seen sub sevens on 2 deals. It's getting a little better. Yeah, Brad. So it's starting to come down. So if you're somewhat in the market, I would just give it a little bit, and I think we'll get back down to reasonable. Now, reasonable before and all this inflation stuff hit us was 5% was pretty good on a boat. If you got under 5%, you were doing really good. So if you have cash, my opinion right now is buy what you can afford with that cash, and then you can always upgrade or make a change once things get a little bit better.
The only thing I'll say is if you're an absolute hammer and you can beat everyone's brakes in on like a BFL or a Toyota Series event, they have serious Phoenix bucks that they're kicking back. I know a lot of these tours, regional and national level tours, have a lot of bonus bucks for certain boats that you run. So if you're awesome and you're going to beat everyone and you run that brand of boat, then you might be able to pay your boat off faster. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like even the pros have a hard time moving their boats. Our good buddy Destin. If you're in the market for a Phoenix, a fully rigged Phoenix with 4 Lowrance, fully tournament rigged PHX 21, I believe.
It's got 4 12-inch Lowrance. It's got active target. All lithium batteries except for the cranking. He's got a dual AGM set up for his cranking battery electronics. It's got, I forget how many hours on the motor, but it's well taken care of. But
well taken care of. It's got a Yamaha 250 SHO on the back. It's got power pulls, all the things that you need. He's asking $70K out the door for that boat. Another buddy of ours, Mike Nadeau, he's got his TRX 20 with a 225 Merc on the back of it. It's a 2020 or 2021, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's asking 54 something for that Mike's boat I'm talking about right now, Pete.
Oh yeah, that's a great boat too. Really well taken
Yep.
care of, good maintenance. You need to add your active target or whatever that you wanted on there because he didn't use it before, but that's another good one. Dual poles, all that good stuff, and it's won a bunch of money, so it can catch fish.
And if you guys are in the market for my boat, it will be available next year because Bradley Terry's going to hook me up with a brand new boat from Bass Pro Shop. So
Mike said 2020 is his boat. So
okay. All right. So hopefully that answered Aaron's question. The rest of the on boats, hopefully that answered the rest of the guys' questions on electronics. And then we'll move into the final one that you posted, and then we'll just have dialogue after this. This one, Terry Baker asked what programs are available in our area to help grow future young anglers to achieve their potential dreams of becoming successful anglers. All other states have it. So I'll just cut it off there. So Terry, North Carolina has a huge following for the North Carolina Athletic Association is affiliated with bass fishing. The North Carolina high school Bassmasters have their own website. They have East, West tournament series on the North Carolina High School Bassmasters website, which I want to say our good buddy Daryl Stevenson runs that program. They have absolutely how you can start a team. You don't even have to necessarily be affiliated with that high school. You can start a Bassmaster team. Who is it? Cat? Is it Cat? Who does? No, Collins. Collins has a youth division for tournament anglers. So the youth fish at the same time as the other guys, and then they just weigh in before them. So, compared to when we were growing up, Terry, like we are leaps and bounds ahead of where we ever have been before. I mean, from all of the high school bass fishing associations to the collegiate, the college level tournament anglers, out West, the One Bass Series now can qualify for the Bassmaster Classic. Like the Bass Federation is trying to make its way back. But regarding the youth, there are a ton of different programs through the North Carolina Athletic Association and the high school Bassmaster series. So hopefully that answered your question. You can go to just Google North Carolina High School Bassmasters. It'll take you right to their website, and it says how to everything, how to become a team, how to do this, how to do this. And
how to join your teams if there's local ones.
Yep,
because they're not just school. They're not just school affiliated. You can have community affiliated teams too. So like Kieran, who was on the show early on, fishes with Fuquay, and that's a community team. So literally anybody in the area can join that one. That's right. As a member of that community team. So North Carolina's got one of the biggest high school programs. Our colleges are always doing extremely well in the college series. So there's lots of opportunity now. And, you can reach out to them and get those. But Cody said I'd argue you can catch just as much from a John boat as a fancy bass boat. You definitely can. Andrew should have a 20K rig, Trey and Luna with a 115, compete against $100,000 rigs all the time. It's not the boat, it's the fisherman. That being said, if I had the money, I'd buy it. 100%. I agree with that too. We got weekend warriors, can't afford the big boat, but one you can fix up, then trade up. That's what I did to end up with the TR2098 model. I got it for $5,000. Yep. Yeah, I mean, those old boats are built well. As long as you get one that doesn't have wood in it, you can buy one fairly cheap. And right now, not actually. Used prices are coming down, so you can start getting back into them again, and then you can upgrade and do sort of what you want with that boat. It's kind of like a blank canvas, and you're not out that much money, and everything works really well.
I just scrolled up to the comments, and it said Pete's mouth was moving, but no sound.
Yeah, I had a whole cluster fart going on.
So hopefully we answered Terry Baker's question. If you got any more, Terry, you know where to find us. Just shoot us an email or shoot us a message, and we'll talk to you about it. Mike put on here earlier ramp permits at 7:30. He put on ramp permits. Do you want to talk about that at all, Pete?
Yeah, it's a disaster. So
Yeah. The laws have
I think
changed.
we talked about it a little bit, but they changed the law basically overnight, without much public comment or anything, to where you now in North Carolina to get a ramp permit. What's up, Eddie? Eddie Yaha said you get in touch with Patrick Gilchrist. He's over the MLF Youth in North Carolina. And Bob Bauer is Bass NC Youth. So there's some names for you. But the ramp permit, so you used to be able to get those a year in advance. Essentially, you put in for a general permit, you got that permit, and then it was kind of open date wise about when you could use that. Now you can't get a permit until 90 days before your event, and it's essentially coming down to first come first serve. So what upsets me the most about this whole situation is a lot of this is because of pleasure boaters, and I'm not. If you like to go out and ride your pleasure boat, that's cool. Complaining about the ramps being full on Saturday mornings and stuff with tournaments, and that's awesome. But I don't know a single pleasure boater that's ever put a dime into that ramp maintenance, into conserving the waterways, or to any of that. We do it when we buy our fishing license every year. We do it with the permit fees that we pay to be able to use those permits to launch for tournaments. Mike's a little bit better educated on it, because he was our weigh master for our club for the last couple of years, so he sort of can probably speak a little bit more technical. But there's a split that they're using now at the state, where I think you can only during certain months you can only use 60% of the allotted parking spots, and the other 40 have to be left open for pleasure boaters or other folks to be able to launch. Again, people that don't pay to use those ramps. It just, pardon my French, but it pisses me off. We put a lot of money, we put a lot of time, into our fisheries, into those ramps. Whenever they have, stuff going on at our local ramps, you always see fishermen there helping do the work if they open it up or ask for volunteers. All of that kind of stuff. And now we're essentially being punished on top of still having to pay fees, potentially not being able to get our ramp permits for our derbies. Yes, they are for derbies. The ramp permits, the launch permits you have to be able to weigh in. So here's what's going to happen. And I'm going to tell you straight up, and I hope it does. Guys are going to start weighing on the water. There's a few small clubs that do it already. Mike said Memorial Day to Labor Day, you're only allowed to have 40% of the parking places with your permit. 40% can go to us that are actually paying to use the ramps and paying to maintain the ramps. No, you don't need ramp permits for fun fishing. These are just for derby.
I got comments after this, Pete. Go ahead.
Yeah, Trey's going to jump into this, but I'm going to continue to. This is all coming from the enforcement side as well. I'm sure it is, Eddie. Yeah. And I know there's been some conflict and some frustration when two clubs will show up to use a ramp on the same day and it's a small ramp and there's not enough parking. And, I get that those circumstances happens from time to time. It's unfortunate that tournament anglers, and in turn all anglers, because I know there's more fun fishermen than there are tournament anglers, but the visibility is the tournament anglers. So, those ramp fees again go towards maintaining the ramps. All of us help pay for that when we buy our fishing licenses, whether we're fun fishing or not. And it's just frustrating as a tournament guy or tournament girl or tournament angler that we do so much to promote conservation and putting your money where your mouth is, and then we kind of get slapped in the face to where now we may not be able to fish derbies that we have scheduled. So far, it hasn't really impacted some of the weekday night tournaments, but I don't honestly know if they're pulling permits for those or if those guys are just like, we're going to do this until we get busted. I don't know. I'm not going to say when they are or where they are. They may just be running it till NCWRC shows up and says, hey, what's going on? It's a bum situation, and it's not just happening in North Carolina, and I've been seeing it happen in these other states, and I've got buddies in other states that have been posting about it. And I've always thrown my support to them and like, hey, that's BS. Like, we got to stand together, blah, blah, blah. But now I really see their frustration that it's affecting us. And, my club just had to move our first tournament because we couldn't pull the permit for where we had scheduled, 6 months ago to have our first tournament. They applied within those 90 days. Another club had already applied, and they were basically like, too bad, so sad. So luckily we were able to pull one for another lake, and we were able to fish that. But that's all. It upsets me. Yeah, I was excited for something too, Cody. It just upsets me that our money is actually going towards maintaining those ramps and everything, and now we're being punished because of it.
So, pardon my French, but I think it's absolute bullshit. And tournament anglers and recreational fishermen are the ones that dump way more money into the economy when it comes to obviously fishing licenses, fuel for the boats, food at the local gas stations, all this stuff. These people that have the pleasure boats, they're the ones that are littering the most. They're not conservationists. They don't give a crap. A lot of them don't give a crap about the habitat for fish or the wildlife or anything like that. They're the ones that tend to have the most boating accidents, the ones that tend to get in trouble the most on the water with alcohol-related incidents and all this other stuff. And so it drives me nuts, and not just for tournament anglers, just for recreational fishermen, that now you can only use a certain percentage of the ramp. I would submit that everybody show up at one of the ramps at the same day and say you're all fun fishing. You know what I mean? And just block all the damn parking spots, because every single one of these guys, they use their boats maybe 2-3 days out of the freaking year. And they want to complain about it. So it drives me nuts too, man. I think it's a bunch of bull crap. But until anglers band together, I just think there's more money. Like, the people on the recreational boater side are probably more rich than we are. So they can probably lobby a little bit better than we can, but it's just something that it's just stupid. I mean, just like Pete said, they're never out there helping wildlife plant grass and make the ecosystem better. They're not volunteering for lake cleanup duty and taking care of the trash that all those guys dump on the shorelines and that's floating in the water. They don't do any of that stuff. Yet we get punished for it. So it'll be interesting to see the way that this in the future tournament deals run. And if anglers are actually going to get pissed about it and then take it in front of legislation or something like that. I don't know.
The last thing I'll add is I've never seen a wake boat stop to pick up trash floating in the lake, but I've seen a lot of bass boats do it. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. I also don't see wake boats stopping and towing somebody back to the ramp because they're broken down in the middle of the lake either, so there's that, but anyways, I mean, if you're a pleasure boater, if you're a pleasure boater, I got it, man. Like, do your
Good
thing.
for you. You're like lice.
Yeah. Everybody's entitled to having fun on the water, but I just think it's gotten a little ridiculous. All right.
Charles said Cracker Barrel parking lot is always full too. Can we change the laws for that? I don't have to wait for a table.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, Charles. Let's start an online movement and see if we can get them to reserve some Cracker Barrel tables just for us.
Hey, so just for all the guys in the local area, for all the tournaments that are going on, if you're going to recreationally fish and you're not part of that tournament, just go to that lake anyways, so you can soak up all the other parking spots, so that 40% is only used by the tournament anglers, dude. So whatever. I don't know.
The lake lice got to have their spots, bruh.
Yeah. They're going to catch a 1/4 ounce, a 3/4 ounce to the face too. But anyways, yeah. So we got about 5 minutes left. Fire your questions at us. Anything you guys want to talk about. We talked about electronics. We talked about buying a boat. Bradley Terry's on here. If you guys are in the market for a boat, we talked about Mike Nadeau. He's got his TRX 20 for sale. Our buddy Destin DeMarion up in Pennsylvania has got his Phoenix for sale. My boat will probably come up for sale next year. It's very well taken care of. You can ask Pete about that. Go see Bradley at Cary Bass Pro Shops. He's got some good stuff up there.
Although
What,
it's the first year we're team tournament fishing out of it some, so there might be some brown stains in the live well if I got to go bad enough. But
there's brown stains in the live well right now. Trust me. we put some
it's a
big fish.
hydro wave. Talk about it, Jeff. I can't talk about it. I don't own one, and
I don't either.
I don't.
You talking about
I've
the
heard
KVD
good.
hydro wave?
Well, he has his own version, but there's their own. This TH Marine has.
Oh
it,
yeah,
but,
TH Marine hydro wave. Yeah, that's right.
I don't have one. I've heard good things about it, and I've talked to some of the elite guys who pretty much all have them on their boat, and time and place. Some of them feel like it spooks fish more than it helps in certain situations. When Harvey was on our show, if you go listen to him, he says he doesn't feel like it's ever really helped him catch fish, but he also doesn't think it's hurt him. He'll turn it on just to make a bunch of noise when he's fishing shallow to see how spooky their fish are, and then he knows tournament day kind of how he has to approach things, so he uses it sort of as a practice tool.
I don't know. Maybe maybe the hydro wave will work better now that everyone's pinging them with forward facing sonar. I don't know. Maybe it'll offset the
I know lots of guys with them. Some of them say they work great. Others say it was a waste of money and it's just on their boat and they turn it on every once in a while just to turn it on. So,
yeah, I don't know. It's almost like scent on your bait. You know, some guys swear by scent on your bait or dipping things in chartreuse, and some guys are like, I don't need it. Some guys are like banana in the boat, no banana in the boat. I don't know. If it works for you, it works for you. But I'd be curious to take a poll from how many guys have hydro waves that have actually zeroed during a day of fishing or during a tournament, you know? So, because I guarantee you every single person on here, they've had to zero before. What do you guys think about the water drop at Jordan and the effect on the base? The base?
The bass. I think he meant bass. Just a mistake.
Oh, the bass.
It's. Yeah, I mean, it's just dropping a normal pool. I mean, it's not really having any effect on them. That lake's up and down because it's a flood control lake. So, I mean, it'll change where they set up, and it depends on the time of year, that kind of stuff. But overall, it's not going to have any effect on the spawn or anything. It's way too early for that to impact. Now there was Trey. We talked to Corey about it, and we saw it ourselves. And I can't remember when it was. It was 2021 maybe, where the fish on Jordan didn't end up spawning till like mid-June. Because we had lots of rain, no rain. The lake level was up and down, and they just couldn't get comfortable bedding anywhere because of the changing water conditions, and so they held and didn't spawn till like mid-June, and that was confirmed by state biologists who said, you know, if those water levels are fluctuating. Yeah, Brad said 2021. If they're fluctuating while they're trying to move up onto beds, it can push it. But when it dropped to its lowest ever a couple months ago, I mean that was just winter pool. Those fish just pushed a little bit deeper and kept feeding. It's going to have no impact on the spawn.
Yeah, I mean, the water level is just a little low right now, but the water level, like Pete said, in the spawn, up and down is really bad. But the one thing to always pay attention to, and I haven't seen it this year on Jordan or Falls or Harris or anything, I haven't seen a shad kill. So a few years ago, there was a massive shad kill. If everyone remembers, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Harris.
Maybe. It was on Harris. I mean,
yep.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, because it was when MLF came. Everybody was out there and couldn't catch any fish, and then MLF came in and whacked them when nobody else could catch them.
I know that I crushed them after that. But yeah, I mean, like Jordan seems fine right now. I mean, I caught bass there today. I said I wasn't gonna say I caught bass there today. I caught bass there the last time I was there. Guys are catching big fish out of there still, so I don't think there's any issues. But hopefully the water comes up a little bit for the spawn and it stays stable.
Yeah, that lake's is deep enough. I mean, it's not super deep lake. Deepest hole I've found in Jordan's like 32 or 33 foot, somewhere right around there. I think there's some holes that are pushing 40, mid 40s. So I mean, unless it drops to where those are a foot deep, there's plenty of water there for those fish to support. And there
Yeah.
was like Trey said, there wasn't a big shad kill or anything. Yeah, Brad, the lake turned over and killed all the big striper.
Fellas, y'all didn't see what's that? Pool is 216.
We
Yeah,
we
that's
did see that, bud. What I'm saying is it's not going to have any effect on the fish. It's not going to change anything. It's back to full pool now. It was almost 10 foot high 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
We got all that rain and pushed it back up. So
Now, if it bottoms out, like, and it goes down to like 210 or something during, the end of March and April, then yeah, it'll probably have an issue. Or if it gets really, really high and then dumps down during the spawn, then that's going to have an effect on the fish, the bass population, because then those eggs are just going to be on dry land and die. In the stripers that were killed off, like the stripers were always stocked in Jordan, from my understanding.
yeah.
Where guys are catching most of the stripers now, if they are catching them, is up in Robeson Creek area, I believe.
Oh, yeah, all up and down the river.
Yeah, in the river. The river's freaking deep. So
yeah, I don't count that, Brad, in front of the dam, but yeah, it's 40 some feet. That's not part of the lake. That's the river, but no.
That's the river.
But yeah, so like Trey said, like as long as it's stable, it could be during the spawn, it could be 22 feet low. I'm just throwing a crazy number out there. As long as that water is stable, those fish are going to push up to wherever they can find shallow. They're going to spawn. The eggs are going to hatch in 3 days after they lay them and fertilize them. The males are going to guard them, and it'll be perfectly fine. Now, if it's high, they spawn and then they drop it 2 feet overnight. You might see some of those beds get destroyed and lose some of those eggs.
Yeah.
The incubation period, I think, is 3 days, which I just said. That could be wrong. I need to double check that, and I'm going to do it right now.
I think it is 3 days, but I also think that the weather has a lot to do with it too. The other thing,
2 to 5 days if they have consistent water temperatures between 65 and 75 degrees.
Yeah.
So anywhere 2 to 5 days.
The other thing to remember about Jordan too is it's one of the most fertile lakes that we have in North Carolina, which is the reason why it was one of the 3 lakes that was chosen for the F1 bass introduction. So Norman, Gaston, in Jordan. So yep. Norman being the least fertile, Gaston being middle of the pack, and then Jordan being the most fertile. So from a fertility standpoint and the amount of forage and the cover and all that stuff, Jordan has it. But again, we see guys, you might be worried about the spawn, but we see guys killing 7-8 pounders during summer tournaments on Jordan, and guys are still whacking 30 pounds out of that lake. So I'm not saying go kill the bass in the summertime. I'm just saying, like, I don't think you're going to see a massive effect on the bass in Jordan right now. All right. What else do we got? Fire it off. A couple more minutes. Fire it off. What you got?
I froze there for a second. What I missed?
You didn't miss anything other than my daughter getting her nose pierced today for her 16th birthday.
I saw it. Did you end the stream, or are we still live?
No, we're still live.
Oh yeah, I saw your daughter got her nose pierced. So.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Jenna. 6 to big 1-6.
16,
big party
man.
Tomorrow, which I unfortunately am missing. I know Chelsea will be there. So
I got
drop-shotting this time of year.
Drop-shotting this time of year. How long do they carry eggs?
How long do they carry eggs?
I don't know.
I mean, they're carrying eggs now, so
they
usually start to form their eggs in September, in February, and then they'll carry them until they spawn. So, what's that? 3 or 4 months.
Drop-shotting this time of year? I don't know. I don't drop-shot this time of year.
I don't either. I know there's guys that do. I think that was Jeff that asked that question. Yeah, Jeff. Horner.
If I was going to drop shot anywhere, it'd be on a bright bluebird sky day on a brush pile that was a staging area for pre-spawn. That's probably where I would drop shot. But I mean, you could probably get away with it anywhere. I mean, you can drop shot in the spawn, so I'm ready to crank and throw a big worm.
Today on a drop shot, Charles said.
Oh yeah,
Me too, Brad.
Well,
Me too.
Charles, you were also on Bugs Island, which those fish act very different on freaking Bugs Island. But yes, drop shotting. That lake is filled with brush piles and offshore structure and stuff like that. Yep. I mean, drop shotting, like if you guys are into the forward facing sonar game, like you got guys hover rigging and Demiki rigging, and drop shotting is same deal. You know, you keep that bait in the strike zone for a really long period of time, whether or not you're using a worm or using a soft plastic or, what do I use? It's made by Yamamoto. I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, but yeah, drop shotting works, man. Like, especially.
So we drop shot your cane piles. Oh yeah.
I love a good drop shot. I always have a drop shot tied on. We don't have forward facing sonars. You don't need forward facing sonars. When do bass start making and carrying eggs before they lay? I don't really know.
February. I think it's
February?
3 months. About 3 months. Yeah. Yeah, you'll start to see them with eggs. If somebody kills a female in February, she'll start to have some eggs, and then they'll reach. They'll be full, ready to lay by end of March, beginning of May, and then it's just waiting on the water temperature and everything. They'll just keep fat to maintain those eggs' health, and then they'll squirt them out, and 2 to 5 days later, a bunch of little baby fry are out.
Yeah, but that depends on where you're bass fishing too, because I don't know how Florida bass do it, but they spawn in January sometimes. So they may start, so for North Carolina, yeah, February. And right now, like between now and March, like you can catch some true giants. And you catch giants on the bed, of course, before they drop their eggs. So there's some big ones to be caught for sure.
Interesting fact too. I'm gonna leave y'all with this as we wind down. Everybody thinks when they catch a big bass, like a 7-pound bass, in in the summer, that was a 10 or 12-pound bass during a spawn. Not true.
No.
Science says they usually lose less than a pound between eggs and fat loss. From when they spawn to when they're done. So. They don't drop 3, 4, or 5 pounds just from laying their eggs.
Yeah, they only drop that weight if they shit out those lead weights that you put in them. So,
yeah. Speaking of lead weights, we got another lead weight controversy for those of you that haven't seen.
Really?
Yeah. So they thought they had a new state record white crappie, 4 pounds and some change. The Game and Fish certified it, and then a few months later asked to check it one last time. They wanded it. They got a hit with the metal detector. They took it to the zoo. They they took an X-ray, and there were 2 ball bearings in its stomach. So they forfeited that state record, reinstituted the old one, and now they're back to the old record. And that guy.
So you said this was a
felony.
What was this? A white perch or a white bass?
White crappie.
Oh, white crappie. So somebody put some lead weights in a fish that most people just eat.
Yeah. They wanted that state record, bro.
Guys, I'll tell you what, desperation is a hell of a thing, and people will do anything to get that title. So don't be that guy or gal. That's ridiculous.
Won't slide them out to deeper water to stage. They're still going to be in the same water depth. It's going to be further than where they normally would, but there's reasons they're in those water depths. It has to do with temperature and where the bait is. So yeah, if the water level's falling, they're not going to be in the exact same area they would be if it was a normal pool. But they're still going to find that depth range relative to the body of water and water temperatures and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, but every situation is so different, You could be fishing a tidal fishery where water's going in and coming out. Fish are going to move into different places, or they're going to have different feeding patterns. But it really just depends on what lake you're fishing, what time of the year you're fishing. It's all relative, to be honest. But yeah, if they're consistently dropping water, fish are going to behave differently. And then if it floods, fish are going to, a lot of times move up, but yeah, it's all relative. All right. Anything else, Pete?
I got nothing, man. I'm ready for bed.
Yeah. Hey guys, we appreciate your engagement tonight. That was awesome. We'll do the next time around. Just check the community page. If you're not a member of the community page, go to the OneCast community page on Facebook. Sign up. You have a few questions to answer. Because we don't let fake accounts in, and then we'll accept you, and then you can be part of the community. Check our partners out again: OneCast Fishing, Mossy Oak Properties with Eric Schwinn, Carolina Waters Apparel Company, CarolinaWatersNC.com. If you guys got any questions about Destin DeMarion's boat, Mike Nadeau's boat, hit those guys up or hit us up, and we can put you in contact with them. They're selling both of their rigs. We got a couple last questions here. Off topic, will you be going to the Classic? I'm not going to the Classic
this year. Nope.
No, I don't. That's too far for us. We're not going to be at the Classic. Let's see. Good night. Have a good weekend, guys. Tight lines. Good night. Tackle it up. Hey, appreciate everyone. We will see you guys on the next Fishing Friday. Last thing I'm going to say, make sure you go to our podcast. You can go to on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, YouTube, all that stuff. We are doing the giveaway. We've announced it a couple Fishing Fridays ago. We got a bunch of different cool things, from casting rods to Lowrance fish finders to baits and things like that. So we talked about it before, but make sure you leave us a review on one of those platforms and then take a screenshot of it and send that to us, either to Pete and my personal, Ben's personal account, or our OneCast Instagram, or the OneCast community page, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you take a screenshot so you can enter yourself in there of your review. And we will do the drawing the last Fishing Friday of March, right, Pete?
That'll be the first drawing. Yep. And then we're going to do one.
First of 5 drawings. It'll be 5 months in a row.
The last Friday. Yep. So you only need to do one review, send it to us, and that'll enter you in all of them. So
awesome. All right, Pete. Let's say goodnight to our friends. Thank you guys for helping us to continue to grow a culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time, and we'll see you on the next episode.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a